All right, we are now live on YouTube. I know we had someone waiting, has been waiting on YouTube for a while too. Siat Mooney, looks like he said hello earlier this morning.
Perfect. Hi, Siat.
Awesome. Siat, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat, or you're welcome to hop on the Zoom call if you have anything. There's the link there that's pinned in the comments of the YouTube chat there.
Sounds good.
Andrew's going to ask you about Kinetic, because I saw that we got our first paying customer. Maybe while we're waiting for any questions to come and just talk about, what is Kinetic? Where did the idea come from? And kind of what's maybe like a short version of the journey of where from idea to where it is now, how it's launched and first paying customer.
Yeah, so Kinetic is joinkinetic.com, and that just went live. Oh, one sec.
It's okay.
Is that you? Is that me?
It's you. One of your tabs is playing.
It was on a different tab. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Where is this?
I know.
I must have pulled it up earlier.
I always have to turn the volume down on YouTube, and then otherwise you get the craziness.
Yeah. It was on a tab I opened earlier, but yeah. So Kinetic, essentially, if you go to joinkinetic.com, we just launched, and this was started out, I guess, kind of as an idea that lifelong friend of mine and I have had, Chris Yule, who's the co-founder and CEO of Kinetic. We've been bouncing an idea similar to this around for a few years, and saw the opportunity with COVID to try and connect professionals and people and make progress. So the whole idea behind it is that, people network now on Twitter or LinkedIn or other things, but it takes a really long time to try and make progress and meet the people you need to meet. So the whole idea around Kinetic is share what you know, like who you know, what you know, and come to learn what you don't. And so one of the key tenets of Kinetic is in onboarding, and as you update your profile, is like, what are you looking to share? So what can you bring to the community and give? And then what are you looking to learn? And so through those two fields, in addition to like your history, Kinetic makes introductions to people that are of interest to you based on your goals of what you're looking to learn. So who can share that information with you? And I'll just pull open a tab just to kind of share with people as we're talking through, give you a better idea of what we're talking about. And so part of the journey, that you're on is, and I've talked about this in a few different talks, and it's, not something we came up with, but leaning on a few different models between like BJ Fogg's behavioral model, and, design thinking, lean UX, lean startup, all of those things. And so how we started out was like, are people interested in this? And I think that's an important question for any startup or any product. Like, can we prove what we like to refer to as like demonstrated demand? So Kinetic now has this, highly polished, visual. We've been working with over 400 members in a private beta doing introductions. But how it started really was just a simple landing page and a spreadsheet. So that, in addition to a MailChimp account, and really what we would do and what Chris would do is make those connections over email, and started doing it and see, hey, what is our retention? How many people are interested in more introductions? How many people are coming back? What are they rating their introductions and their conversations? Are they actually making progress? And so through that, we've kind of used that whole lean startup approach to take more of a validation approach on how we build and what we build. And then, so that, I think that started in April, May-ish timeline. And then I guess by June, we had a platform where we could start creating profiles for individuals and start making sure that people could get access to each other, making introductions through the platform, and really starting to automate it. So kind of on this journey from doing things very manually at first to prove out that, hey, we're measuring behavior, people are actually showing up, they're coming in, there's hurdles kind of along the way that you need to learn how to get over, before you automate it. And so with all of that, I guess all of that knowledge, continuing to hone in, how soon can we get someone what we're calling time to value? Hey, when somebody new signs up, how soon can we introduce them to someone they know, or give them resources like what's available now is office hours are available. So anyone can come in and the professionals that are on the platform can host an office hours to help the community out. So the one-on-ones are kind of who we think you should meet based on your goals. The office hours are kind of, hey, I can find someone that's looking to teach me about, like I have one coming up called early stage design for startups. So people can come in and share their startup ideas on design, and I can kind of give them feedback and how I've approached it in my career to help them make the most impact in the startup they're on. So now, it's this platform that has a lot of different professionals, different people a part of, and it, didn't always look this polished. It didn't always, have a good brand, and we've still been figuring out the messaging and interviewing users. And really, I think a testament to anyone building a startup is that, like, you have to be prepared to pivot and change and respond to the data that you're getting, and how are you clarifying your messaging? How are you actually helping someone deliver value, and all the triggers that happen along the way. So what I mentioned to start was that behavioral design aspect of it, where you want to design for a specific behavior. In this case, we want somebody to make progress. So what are the motivations for them making progress? What are the triggers? And what's kind of the ability, and in this case, the ability is the app, but it wasn't always that. It was essentially just signing up for a newsletter. So now if you sign up, you can join the wait list, and there are invite codes going out. So when you join Kinetic, there'll be a wait list that comes on, and we're letting people in periodically as well from that wait list into the community. If you have an access code, which maybe I could share some with the with the office hours community here. If you're interested in one of those and getting access to this, and really being in the next intro, which happen on every Tuesday, let us know, and I can see what I can do to grab a handful of codes to send out to the community. But have been on this journey, kind of to your question, Jacob, of what has the road been like? Hey, go slow to go fast. So learn a lot about the professionals and the people and the progress they're trying to make. And through that, both Headway, myself, and Chris, we've done over 200 interviews in the last 7 months of people, like understanding kind of the problems they're trying to solve, how they're doing it, their perspectives on how Kinetic's solving the problem, its place in the market, pricing, like all of those things. So really getting that primary research is so important, because the secondary research, like the trends and the reports, give you a high level view of the market. They don't really help you create a new product or really come in razor sharp. They give you kind of a diluted version of, even what your market would do in their behaviors. So yeah, that's kind of a quick rundown.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's something that has been kind of going on behind the scenes, but definitely becoming more I guess polished and upfront than ever before, which is awesome to see. So we do have one question from Siad, actually. He says, what do you suggest for product design students when working on hypothetical cases to think about metrics? I'm still struggling with metrics.
Can you repeat that question again? Sorry.
Yeah. What do you suggest for product design students when working on hypothetical cases to think about metrics? He said, I'm struggling with metrics still.
Yeah. I think that's hard from a metrics standpoint, when you have something hypothetical and there's no business goal. So I think a lot of my recommendations to students is, and this is how I learned a lot in design, is just thinking of ideas or things I wish existed or problems in the market, and using that as a tool to propel your design. So really give it a purpose and give it kind of some direction. So for me, that looked like different app ideas. Like we just showed Kinetic, but like trying to understand how you use design to influence people and influence behavior and think through, those real world problems. I think, for a lot of hypothetical projects that you see on Dribble or other things in the startup world, it's a lot more visual design or maybe slight UX tweaks and things like that. You're not really solving that new problem. So I think for you to really be bought in and also control the whole process, creating your own startup is probably the best way, or like creating your own idea that you're actually going to go forward and try to launch, and you'll learn about all the intricacies and all the steps and things along the way that aren't just product design, but like marketing design, how you're talking to people, copywriting, like all of these things that are going to be a huge part of your overall design experience, that you might not otherwise get access to. And I think in my experience, like that's given me a good understanding of end to end, how you build a product and bring it to life as a business, not just, hey, the pixels and, how things look and how things work behind the scenes, but really like setting expectations up front. And then once somebody's in, what does that look like? So I would always recommend, trying to start your own thing, even if you're not sure you're going to continue. The other thing that's really interesting is like try to coordinate with like hackathons or startup weekends. So as a designer, like contributing, and that's going to give you a really keen ability to move fast and make decisions. And I think really good design is about iterating and, not falling in love with pixel perfection just for the sake of pixel perfection, but really trying to push an agenda forward, which is, hey, we're going to use design to reach business goals. And so I think those time box approaches really help. Even doing similar to that time box approach, even doing something like a Google Venture design sprint on an idea you have, and time boxing it to a week, and really just going through the process and getting reps, and that repetition I think is really helpful. So from a kind of going to the last half of your question, I really struggle with metrics. I think, it's hard if you don't have real users to really guide with metrics, if you don't have users or, revenue or anything like that to gauge on. So I don't really have any good recommendations there. I guess there's always sentiment or, asking about preferences on how things look or feel. But from a, true objective standpoint, it's going to be hard to feel like you're making true progress, because everyone will tell you, oh, this looks great. But, and I've said this before, I don't know if on this same forum or not, but like people will download things that look good to see what they do. And if they don't provide utility or value to them, they'll delete them. I know I do that all the time. Like it's much easier to use something that's poorly designed that achieves a very valuable goal than something that's really designed really well and achieves like almost nothing for you. And that's true with a lot of apps that are out there that are truly visual. So I think really focusing on the problems is going to help you design better. So hopefully that's helpful.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Andrew. I kind of have a question. I know that you've been building Kinetic and Bubble, and we've been talking about no-code tools the last couple of weeks, just with like idea validation and stuff. What are some of the things that that are kind of frustrating with Bubble as far as Kinetic goes, and things that you kind of wish you had, where you feel like there's friction, but then again, like what's the balance of using something that's a little easier to build with versus, building with code from scratch, so I'm kind of curious how that's been.
This is something that we've been thinking about, or actually like actively planning how to use with our clients, both startups and corporate innovation teams. Like, how do we use no-code tools to really learn faster up front? So that's the benefit of Kinetic, is like with a much smaller team and less resources, you can actually get more done and, adjust really quickly based on how their visual development set up. But the things that it misses is like, at Headway, we care a lot about craft. We do a lot of design system work end to end, from design through development and tokenization. So you miss those aspects of it where you don't get control. So they have, if you're familiar with atomic design principles, they have atoms, which are like the colors and fonts. They have molecules, which are like, a button kind of combining a color with a font together. And then they have molecules that are like, let's say, a banner or I'm saying, sorry, organisms, that's like a banner or like the header profile or things that you can inject content into and like send props to. They don't really have that in Bubble. And so it's hard to keep true consistency across your entire application, and things can be defined on their own, well or not. So you try to create like groups that are repeatable and then be able to, come back to those and use them. But if you iterate on one screen, it kind of detaches. So if you're familiar with like Photoshop, which I don't know if they have components now, and familiar with Figma and their design systems, it's essentially just recreating the wheel every component, which is really tough, both from design and development standpoint. But yeah, I think other than that, like their responsiveness it leaves some stuff to be desired. I know last week, Jacob, we talked about Webflow, and they just raised a huge round at like a 2-point-something billion valuation. I think this is a space they're going to move into, and they're really poised for it because they have the community and they have that responsive engine like down pat, where what you see truly is what you get, and it does it in a very eloquent way, and animations and high level design, where Bubble, I think that's a little bit less of the norm.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like Siat was asking about atomic design a little bit. I don't know if Billy has a specific article on atomic design, but I know it's definitely something we practice. I'm kind of curious, Siat, if there's a specific question within atomic design, if you're looking to get started, or if you have a specific, I guess, problem or use case that you're looking to use it with. But
yeah, while Siat's answering, let me look. I know we have some talks on design systems, and in the core we talk about like intro to atomic design and those principles. So I think we do have some good resources for that.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just take a look.
Oh, it looks like Jake joined us here on Zoom. Let's see.
Hey, Jake. We're going to allow you to talk so you can unmute your mic. How are you doing?
Nice. How you doing, man?
Good. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I hope you're doing well. I hope everything I hope it's all going well. I haven't talked to you since pre-COVID, so hopefully everything's going well.
Yeah, it's 2021. I think there's a new outlook for a lot of people. So
yeah.
Good.
Well, the year switch is really what did it for me. It's like, we're just done with that old one.
Yeah,
we can forget about it. I just came in. I actually didn't have. I was just gonna like kind of lurk, but I guess I can throw out a question real quick. Have you ever watched Jason Cohen's designing the ideal bootstrap business?
I don't think so.
I would assume I think it's probably like the best, in my opinion, at least. It's like one of the best talks on like software entrepreneurship, but so I would recommend watching it if you haven't. But he sort of talks about like in the beginning, there's sort of this scratching and clawing stage for companies to find their customers.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm currently in that stage. But I'm just curious as to like how you guys and how you advise others to start and work in that initial stage, because like I'm not like a famous YouTuber, I'm not like Twitter famous, etc. So like all of these platforms are sort of like everything, no matter what, is always scratching and clawing for me. So
yeah. I mean, and I think we've maybe talked about this before, to some extent, but I think from where we start and we really try to peel back is, can we define out who the customer is with like a pinpoint accuracy? You know what I mean? Like a lot of startups we talk with, let's say it's it could be an app for football players, but it's an app for players that are doing that are in the NFL. It's also an app for players that are college players, also an app for kind of youth football and Pop Warner. And I think, when you think about the context of those players, like, yes, they're playing football, but they're very different goals and very different value that you can provide to them, right? Like an NFL player, if they mess up their playbook, like they could get benched, that could cost them, millions of dollars. A Pop Warner player, if they miss a play or misread, their wristwatch, not their wristwatch, but their kind of wrist tab is what they normally get. Coach is going to say one word to him. So I think about, for us, like thinking about your first customers is, can you really strip away the noise of serving multiple people with multiple goals and focus on one customer and one problem, or one customer and two problems that are most valuable, because then that can drive your pricing. And kind of what we found is like that will also drive your what they compare you to, in the market, whether that's a substitute or a competitor. So like if you're, too many things to too many people, that's where I see like that early customer traction revenue phase being really tough. But if you can pinpoint it, like you kind of know, like your message becomes clearer, you know what I mean? It's not as watered down. You're not trying to be general. So you're basically introducing constraints to you to be, very sharp with your messaging and that value you can provide through the app, versus trying to serve, a handful of people a little bit. And also like the added benefit there is you can move much faster with that one person versus, in this scenario I mentioned, like NFL players, Pop Warner, the reality as you launch is you're going to get feedback from everybody. And if you're doing, essentially creating 4 businesses in one, because it's a different customer, different value prop, different solution context. If you're doing that, like you're going to spend a lot of time iterating on your product in the other areas and probably not make a whole ton of progress. And so what we usually try to do and advise is like, let's get crystal clear on the customer. And if we're not clear, like let's start there, then let's move into the most valuable or the biggest solution opportunity we have, or the biggest problem we have to solve through that opportunity, and then get into, what the solution is. And so our advice is, make decisions as fast as you can with the data that you have. And if you don't have it, go get it. And that for us, that's like, one-on-one conversations. That's trying to create, once we have a pinpointed customer and a problem we're going to solve, really using prototypes to sell. And we've done that both for enterprise and like, I think as a creator, it's hard though, right? Like I had a tweet about this too, but like everybody, and this is kind of in the context of like a larger product team, but like product strategy thinks like more product strategy will make things better. Design thinks, higher polish and higher fidelity is going to make things better. Developers think, that 100% code coverage is going to get us there. But really it's like trying to use discipline to tell yourself no, and like be okay with things just being okay, and it's kind of like it's an art and a science, right? Like,
you can't let good be the enemy of great or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like trying to, so then when you focus on the customer traction and, selling a prototype or on some mockups or something, like you can change really quickly what you're doing and not feel like, oh, I sank 6 months into this, like I better keep going.
Do you, I sort of another question, I don't mean to like just keep asking questions, but I have your attention, so I might as well use it real quick. Do you think a lot of bootstrapped entrepreneurs and stuff really, currently, I think a lot of people really undervalue like the soft marketing skills, personally, like me for a really long time, like I would spend time like building stuff. And obviously once it came time to actually like get it into the hands of people, that's where everything just sort of falls apart. So I'm just wondering, like, if I'm sure you've read Traction. So like Traction is sort of like you should kind of do both things in parallel, where you 50% of time on your product and 50% of time on marketing for it. And I just wonder if that's something that you agree with, or if you think, it should be, they should be intertwined, or they should be separate, or.
Yeah. I mean, we run into this a lot. Like we kind of have, in our expedition process, we have like one path that's more research heavy and one path that's like research and like building alongside. And so I think the biggest thing, like from a marketing standpoint, is I don't know, like I think a lot of companies, I mentioned this already with customer and problem, but like when you don't talk to customers enough, you don't try to sell early before you even have a product, like you continue to build
the
risk
wrong
essentially. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think like if I were to choose one, I would say like do your research first. But I think as creators and as founders, like what we've seen is doing both is often more desirable, even if it's more risky.
Sure.
Right. But we would never recommend like, hey, go build it for, if building's a good way to learn, right? But if you can do it quickly, like if you can build something in a week, and create something of value where you can actually walk someone through a value prop and sign them up, like that's a great way to learn if you can do that quickly. Where it's really risky is when it takes you 3, 4, 5, 6 months to even get something out there and then get to a customer conversation. So I would always prioritize on research plus, some sort of fidelity, the appropriate fidelity design or prototype or visual that you can get in front of them to really portray the value you're going to create, whether that's like a screenshot or like a printable paper or, really anything. I think the companies that do that really well are, obviously Kickstarter, whether that's an app or whether that's a physical product, like that's all pre-orders, that's on prototypes, that's on storytelling.
Right.
And if you watch their videos, the ones that are really successful, they've spent time talking with customers like a lot and understand the language they use and, the whole ecosystem of where their product fits in. And so I think both would definitely be better than just the one.
I mean, talking to people is scary, man. I don't know. It's spooky.
It is. Yeah.
They might hate this thing that I spent 6 months of my life on for no reason.
Yeah. That's the 6 months part, right? That you gotta do it before you spend 6 months.
Yeah. That's harder.
Right. Yeah. And I think like I talked about with Kinetic in that path is like everything was manually. Hey, can we prove it out manually? And I had some advice for an entrepreneur I had a call with yesterday. They were looking to build an app and, we can't really make progress. And I said, but could you do this manually? And like, yeah, we actually could. And like we could they had like a marketplace similar to I guess Uber Eats or DoorDash, essentially, where like, they thought they needed an app to try and get people engaged, but you could have a web page with an order form. You could do it all manually if you started locally. Like you don't have to, be scalable from the start. And that's what
just do it by hand at first, I guess.
Yeah, do it by hand, and then you're less tied to it. But then you can learn about the mechanics. You can learn about the intricacies. You can change it really quick and figure out what works and what doesn't. I mean, when you get in software, and this being a developer, is like things can get really complex really fast and be hard to change.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Even as a 10x developer, whoever those are, I've never seen one. No, I'm just kidding. But like even with that, the ability to change quick, like that's
there's a certain amount of complexity, right, that you just can't avoid when you start building software. I mean, even if your goal isn't even if your goal is just to get the MVP, it's never the MVP unless you are like dead strict with yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and as a developer, kind of going back to that tweet that we talked about, you just want to throw more code at problems because it feels good. Like it feels way, way better to just like write some code and then something pops up on the screen and you're like, yeah, I'm making progress. This is progress. But in reality, it's sort of looking sideways at the actual problem and not doing the thing that you need to be doing, which is talking to people, I guess, is the...
Yeah, I mean, that depends on your goal. Like if you just want to build a product that you use and you think's cool and you enjoy tinkering, like go do that. If you want to build a business, like then you should approach it a different way. You should look at your time as an investment and say, hey, if I'm investing in this company, is it better to invest my time in development or like in user acquisition and problem development and definition?
Yeah, definitely.
And if you frame it as an investment in your own mind, like you probably always lean towards, well, customer traction, right? Like how will I know if this is working versus, let me just keep building,
Definitely.
So awesome.
I was going to say that kind of makes me think about just kind of the flip side where you have like really great products that sell themselves, but like the marketing's actually not that great. For some reason, once people get the product, like, oh, I love it. But like they're not scaling fast enough or moving or selling fast enough because the messaging's not right, or they're trying to sell to too many people. Or so I think there's always like, if you have a really great product, but you're not selling it to the right people or with the right message, that's just as bad, in my opinion. And some of that too is timing with the industry and what people, maybe people aren't ready to jump from the thing that they've always been comfortable with to the next thing. It's just a matter of like cultural timing and like how the world, thinks and stuff. But yeah, I think the one thing I always see with a lot of marketers is like, even if they're working for companies that have been around for 10, 15 years, like there's still like there's always a new way to like, market and to communicate like their product offering. And like the best marketers always say, like, you have to talk to your customers like every week, like find 2 people to talk to every week to just make sure and validate that you're saying the right things to the right people in the right ways with the right words, like all these different things. And it also helps you uncover new opportunities too. So it's like, oh, actually our marketing team's been uncovering all this great new information. Either we can create a new feature for our current product, or we could create a whole new product and maybe enter a whole new market. It could be like this whole other thing. So sometimes like marketing and sales can be super powerful, where they should be actually very powerful for helping the product teams grow as well. Like it's a very like inclusive, like they should always be together, never like in their separate silos. So yeah.
Definitely. In your case, Jake, your sales, marketing, design, and development. So
yeah,
it's all me, baby.
Yeah.
It's all me.
Yep.
No, actually, that brings up. I have some friends who are doing pretty. I mean, way better than me, but like doing pretty well. Like 5K MRR, like lots of like insanely insanely high lifetime values. Like just are really like people love products and stuff like that. But some of my friends are just like not doing any marketing, and it's just like, bro, come on, like. And I'm even guilty of it. Like I just write code all day too. And it feels good. But like, it's like, bro, you already have people, like just write some blog post or something. I don't care. But like, it's so rough to see the 2 parts so separate.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, there's a big movement with bootstrapping and even NoCode, as we talked about a little bit, but I think one of the things we look for there and we advise on is kind of this industry average of customer acquisition cost to lifetime value. Like if it's, a good baseline is 3 to know you have a good fit, your messaging's on point, you're delivering on a value for the customer, meaning like for every dollar you're spending 33 cents to get a customer. And when it goes, let's say you're only spending 20 cents, like that's an indicator on the high side that like you're leaving a ton on the table in the market, like you're not being aggressive enough. So that, that window is kind of like 3 to 5x of what your customer lifetime value is, 3 to 5 times what it costs to acquire someone. So I think if you look at some of those metrics, like in growth, and you want to grow, like you should definitely plan on investing in finding your customers and running ads and being able to scale up your product, especially if you have really good retention and a high lifetime value.
Yeah, and really looking for those kind of different acquisition channels, right? I think experimenting with paid ads and blog posts, content, microsites, that type of stuff, I think is really useful. It's just some of my friends have just made like products that are just so good, and it's just, I think it's hard to find. Well, not necessarily hard to find those acquisition channels, but I think it's just when it's a 1-person team or whatever, when they're a dev, it's a tendency to, I think, just focus on writing code again, just coming back to the same thing.
Yep.
Definitely. All right. Well, I will stop. Sure. I will stop monopolizing your time so you can answer other people's questions. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go back to lurking in the background. It's good talking to you again.
Yeah. Likewise, Jake. We should catch up soon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Always down. Always down. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks.
Peace.
All right. So. Yeah, I don't think we have any other questions actually right now, Jake. We might have a couple come in from YouTube here. If anyone has any, feel free to text it, or if you want to join us here in Zoom, you can do that as well.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any more on YouTube right now. Might be an early day where we wrap up a little earlier today, but we'll give people a little bit of time if there's any questions.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, while we do that, I think, one thing that would be good to mention it tomorrow. So if you're not a subscriber on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, smash it, as they say. But we have an event coming up with our product team on just the learning loop and how we use it to innovate new products. So I think that'd be super valuable for people. It'll be live, and then we'll also have a recording up after. And one thing that as a company, Headway, we're starting to double down more on and do more of is events, live streams, and really figure out how we can help the community that's helped us, and continue to put on events that are valuable. So if you have content or ideas or things you're looking to learn, definitely send those over to us, either via YouTube or ahoy@headway.io, and we'll get those to our Jacob is part of the planning for all of our events and everything that goes on. So we'll plan to get those in and make sure we're adding value to you as you are on your startup journey, whether that's as a contributor in design, dev, or product, or as a founder as well. Sounds good. Anything else, Jacob? We should be good.
Yeah, not that I can think of. I mean, yeah, I know next week we also have promoting design systems on Tuesday, and then we're actually we'll be publishing today, but the events for February we'll have up on the calendar soon too. We'll be able to talk about those next week on this call as well. I'm super excited for the conversation with Ryan and Clint. They're going to talk about Ditto and just the journey of idea to launching that venture, and how, like, their whole process of how they talk to customers, how they created a landing page, how they improved the messaging to make sure that they were like saying the right things in the right ways and all that stuff. How they created a quiz, like a really engaging and valuable quiz. It wasn't just like, oh, see if what character you are in Harry Potter. It's more like providing like real value, like takeaways, things you can take away with you to improve like your relationship. It was like a relationship quiz. So it's really cool. And I know they were able to get like a lot of customer leads through that. So it'll be really exciting to learn about the whole story of like building that product from them.
Yeah,
I think
I
it'll
think
be really valuable. Yeah.
that's a good story that like iterates the value of like going beyond the product. Like if you just focus on the product, and made that as good as you could, like you would miss out on really that lead gen. Is kind of what you're talking about, Jake, is like being able to do both at the same time, like validation and learning, customer acquisition, plus be able to, to build and iterate on the product. So super valuable.
Yeah. I think it's always good to have like, because there's a lot of concepts that we'll talk about or other people will talk about in presentations, and to see it in context, with actual data and real results and a real concept, I think is just really cool to see, because it's like, you can say theories all day and frameworks all day, but when you actually see the like proven results of like following this framework, I think that's helpful. And I know that's something that we're looking forward to doing here at Headways, like, sharing like how Kinetic grew, how Ditto grew, how other projects for our clients have grown, if they give us permission to, because I think a lot of people don't understand like the actually what it takes to do stuff and all the details that kind of have to happen. And as Jake was saying before, talking to customers can be like really scary, and like, but the sooner you do it, the less it'll hurt. Like if you wait too long and then like try to like, prove this idea, it's like, oh, I spent all this time, which, there are products that have been successful, waiting a long time before they show it to anybody. But I think like, it won't hurt as bad if no one likes it, kind of thing. So,
Right.
and it also helps you, like, like you were saying before, move faster, make better decisions, pivot, improve the product before it's even public. It's a lot of little things that can happen that like impact the overall business. Which is like, which is the main picture of creating a product. It's like, it's about building a business, like we always say, not just an application. So if you can't build a functioning business that creates revenue and has paying customers, what are you building it for? I mean, obviously you can do like, more fun side projects or community efforts for building community without like, worrying about outcomes. But when it comes to building a business, like that's what really matters, is like, is this valuable enough for people to buy it? And can you create it within your budget? So.
Right. Yeah. And I think of, I forgot what I was going to say there. Something.
It's okay.
Something about building a business. I was thinking of like Simon Sinek always says this, like, sure, like you don't have to make money, if you have one of those efforts, but like if you are starting a business, like understanding what impact you want to have on both the people that are joining you on the journey, the impact for them financially, like for their careers, and also your customers. Like money is the fuel that's going to get you there and scale your impact, not your intention. So like if you can build a business that's sound, like you can really scale your impact through that. And it's not your, there's a famous quote by Henry Ford: if your business only, what does it say, if your business does nothing but make money, it's a poor business. So it's like making an impact, making positive change, like really trying to advance a cause, and not just like, hey, we're here to make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're here to, that's not the end, right? The means kind of have to justify the means. So
and I know Simon Sinek talks about that too. It's your business, the purpose of your business isn't to make money. It's to like I think he says the same thing, kind of just in a different way. Because if that's all you're worried about, like no one wants to do that with you. Because if it's all about you making money, like that's not a team that anybody wants to be a part of, or a culture that anybody wants to be a part of. So it's finding that balance of like, solving a problem that you care about, and in a helpful way, and then find people to help you build that and nurture that. And but also on the flip side, like, hey, I have money, so I can do this. Like this business is going to create revenue to enable us to do this, to empower us to do this, to help other things, related to the business, for sure. Well, I don't see any more questions. It looks like folks are kind of dropping off on YouTube. So I think we can wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody. Thanks Jake. Thanks Sayat. Hopefully that was helpful. Hit us up if you have more questions or anything else. Excited to be along for the journey as you guys are making more progress.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.